5,000 years ago, an ancient superpower thrived along the floodplains of the Indus River. It rivaled Egypt and Mesopotamia in scale, boasting massive, grid-planned cities that supported millions of people. But there's a problem. To this day, we haven't decoded a single symbol of their language. These people left behind no readable records, wrapping their entire world in a thick historical silence. Without text to guide them, the ruins became a blank slate. Early 20th century colonial archaeologists like Mortimer Wheeler stepped into that void and started projecting their own biases onto the artifacts. They spun a narrative that stood unquestioned for decades. They claimed the Indus people lived in complete isolation, managed a perfectly peaceful, communist-style utopia, and were eventually wiped out by a superior invading race. Modern archaeology is tearing those old assumptions apart. The dirt is finally speaking, and it reveals a society that is far more complex, highly organized, and considerably grittier than the romanticized colonial fairy tales. Let's look at the first myth. Instead of a primitive, isolated society, physical ruins at places like Mohenjodaro reveal an absolute obsession with urban standardization. Every brick across thousands of miles adhered to a precise mathematical ratio, 4 to 2 to 1. This modular foundation allowed them to engineer unprecedented infrastructure. Average homes featured the first flush toilets, routing waste into covered street sewers. Building at this scale requires immense resources. To fund it, the Indus people established a sprawling international trade network stretching across Central and West Asia. We know this because their foreign trade partners kept receipts. In Mesopotamian writing, the merchants from the Indus Valley were referred to by a specific name, the Meluhans. These expat communities lived abroad for extended periods. To manage the massive volume of exports, they used specialized carved seals as commercial signatures, verifying ownership and tracking goods across the ancient world. The people of the Indus operated a highly connected, hyper-organized global trading powerhouse. Which brings us to the second myth. Because early excavations didn't uncover obvious royal palaces, scholars assumed Indus cities were governed as a classless utopia. The reality is much starker. Later digs revealed distinct social stratification, showing a sharp physical divide between basic, modest dwellings and sprawling, multi-story luxury homes. The idea that they were uniquely peaceful falls apart too. Managing immense wealth makes you a target, and the Indus people actively fought to protect their sprawling empire. They built massive, heavily fortified citadels with defensive walls measuring up to 18 meters thick to separate and protect specific zones. We also have the physical toll. Analysis of their remaining skeletons shows a disproportionately high rate of severe cranial trauma, a clear indicator of regular, large-scale violence. To enforce strict urban planning and mount heavy defenses, the civilization relied on a strong, centralized authority, likely powerful merchant lords or regional kings who fought fiercely to hold their territory. That leaves the final, most pervasive myth, the Aryan Invasion Theory, which taught that a superior race of foreign warriors swept in and violently conquered the native population. It never happened. Modern DNA evidence and an unbroken cultural record confirm there was no sudden genetic shift and no invading race. The true killer arrived around 1900 BCE. A catastrophic shift in the climate triggered their downfall. When the regional monsoons shifted south, the essential rivers began to dry up. That destroyed their crop yields, starving the population and entirely collapsing the international trade networks they depended on. The final days of these urban centers were brutal. Public administration vanished, streets flooded with sewage, garbage piled high, and starving citizens rioted. It was the terrifyingly slow failure of their environment, not the swords of an invading army, that finally broke the ancient world's most organized superpower. Even as the cities failed, the people of the Indus didn't evaporate from history. They simply abandoned the ruins, returned to a rural lifestyle, and migrated to the east and south. As they dispersed across the subcontinent, they brought the fragments of their society with them, embedding their cultural DNA deeply into the region. Their agricultural innovation of double cropping, their strategy board games, and their creation of fine woven cotton textiles are still staples of South Asian life today. Even their ancient religious elements, the horned Pashupati figures, the ritualistic use of fire and water purification,
laid the groundwork for traditions that millions still practice. A civilization doesn't need to leave behind readable texts or towering stone pyramids to survive. True resilience is adapting, evolving, and dissolving into the everyday fabric of the modern world.